Hello everyone. Please excuse me if my video is a bit all over the place today. I had absolutely no intention of doing a video, but like it works with me. As of 2 hours ago, I had no plans of doing any video, but then I see something I want to talk about, or it comes to my mind, and I ponder over it, and I kind of have to talk about it straight away. You know, whilst the emotions are still there, I have to speak about it. Anyway, so what had happened was I stumbled upon a post. It was an old post, and this person was going on about how firstborns, right? And the person said something like, "Oh, other siblings should leave firstborns alone because you know they also have their lives to live, but other siblings, younger siblings, are always bothering firstborns with bills and all those things. That leave them alone and stuff." But what really was funny was so someone made a comment and said something like, well, now you can see them lamenting. If it's to claim inheritance, you won't hear their voices. Like, firstborns are lamenting now, but when it's time to claim inheritance, they will keep quiet and nobody will hear their voices. I thought that was absolutely hilarious. I thought it was really funny. And that got me thinking about birthright, right? So what is birthright? It's the privilege a person is entitled to as soon as they're born, or the privilege of the firstborn son, right? So the privileges could be wealth, it could be estate, it could be whatever it is. And if it's a firstborn son, it's sort of like when the father is not available, the firstborn kind of takes control of the family affairs, stand in as the father, being that's the privilege of being a firstborn son. So what had happened was so I started digging further, right? And I looked at other meanings of birthright. And the other meaning I found was a person's moral or natural entitlement. A moral entitlement being a child is entitled to, every child is entitled to education. Yes, they might not get it, but they're entitled to it, if that makes any sense. Then a natural entitlement would be, a natural privilege would be that everybody, be it man or woman, is entitled to collaborate with whoever they want to collaborate with, be it in business or in marriage or in friendship. So that's another meaning for birthright. Every time people talk about birthright, the story that comes to my mind is the story of Jacob and Esau. Now, please, if you're not Christian, please refer to Google. Like, I try to use the stories because they are very accessible. Okay, so the story of Jacob and Esau, right? That's the story that actually comes to my mind. Now, let me recap that story, right? Twins. Jacob and Esau were twins, but Esau was the elder twin, right? So Esau had gone into the fields one day and he came back tired and hungry and everything. And then Jacob was like a homebody. Do you understand? He was like a mommy's boy. So he was cooking soup, lentil soup. And then Esau ran in and came in. He was tired and hungry. So he said to Jacob, "Oh, please, can I have some soup?" and everything. And Jacob actually asked, and Jacob said, "Okay, sure, I'll give you some soup if you exchange your birthright for a bowl of lentil soup." And Esau was like, "Please, what's the birthright doing for me? Give me the bowl of lentil soup, I'll give you my birthright." Now, anybody, okay, people have heard this story, right? And a lot of people think the story is absolutely ridiculous. It's ludicrous. Like, who in their right minds will exchange their birthright for a plate of soup? Who? Seriously, think about it. Let me answer that. A lot of people. Almost everyone, actually. Let me explain. So, Esau, in this context, represents us as human beings, you know. Then Jacob represents the world. The world could be your friends, your family, your colleagues, your followers on social media, whatever it is. And the birthright in question represents our birthright, our natural rights, our better judgment, our values, our morals. Does that make any sense? And the bowl of lentil soup in this context represents fleeting pleasures, worldly gains. So what I'm trying to say is, every time you give in to fleeting pleasures or worldly gain, what you're doing is exchanging your birthright. You're giving your power away for a bowl of lentil soup. I mean, in your case, it could be a bowl of chicken soup or turkey pepper soup or goat meat. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is those worldly gains, it could be money, it could be acceptance. Let me give you a good example, right? So it could be people pleasing. Now, a friend of yours comes to see you and that friend says, "Oh, you see that person? I don't like that person. Let's find a way to sabotage that person," or whatever it is. Now, that your better judgment tells you you shouldn't do it because this person hasn't wronged you in any way, but because you want to please your friend, you want to make your friend happy, so you go along with it anyway. Does that make any sense? It could be relationships, right? And you've been going about your way abstaining from all sorts of sexual immorality, and then you get into a relationship and your partner is like, please, I don't have time for all this. If you don't, if you don't conform, if we don't do this, I'll go and look for somebody else, I'll cheat on you, and you don't want to lose that person, so you go along with it. Most of the time, I'm not even saying it's intentional. Sometimes it's not even intentional. For instance, it could be that you're really, really in need of money. It could be for a medical bill or whatever it is. And then somebody comes to you with a shady deal. Oh, let's defraud this person, let's defraud this company or whatever it is. You know in your heart of hearts that is very wrong, but genuinely you need the money. However, wrong is wrong, but you go along with it anyway. Now, here's the problem. The consequences of exchanging your birthright is loss. Every time you give your power away, every time you give into worldly gains or whatever it is, you experience loss, no exceptions. Okay, so let me give a few examples, right? And I would go by Bible characters because it's more accessible. So let's look at Moses, right? Moses gave into anger. How? His birthright was to lead the children of Israel into the promised land. But these were terrible human beings. It's not easy leading hundreds of thousands of people and leading them out of Egypt and leading them to the promised land. Every time they were hungry or they were thirsty or they wanted anything, they would want to stone him. They would scream at him. He was frustrated. So they needed water at some point. They were going to stone him to death. And God said, you know what? Just hit the rock once and water would come out of it. I think it was the water of Meribah or something. And out of anger, he hit the rock twice. Guess what? He lost his right. He lost his birthright to lead the children of Israel into the promised land. What happened to him there? He gave in to fleeting pleasures. The fleeting pleasure was anger. He gave in to anger. That's why you have to always control your anger and not let other people, the Jacobs of the world, collect your birthright from you. Anyway, let's take a look at Queen Vashti. Beautiful, fair to look upon. The king wanted to show her off to all the princes and all the king's men and everything, but guess what? She gave in to pride. The king sent for her and she refused to answer. Why? Because she just felt like nothing was going to come out of it. So she gave in to pride, and what happened? She lost her right to the throne. She lost her crown to Esther. Take a look at King Saul, the first king of Israel. He gave in to disobedience. God said, wipe out the Amalekites. What did he do? He kept a souvenir for himself. He gave in to disobedience. And what happened to him? He lost his crown to David. Now let's look at David, chosen by God, a great king. What happened to him? He gave in to lust. He saw Bathsheba taking a bath and he gave in to lust. He slept with one of his soldiers' wives, killed the man and then married the woman. What happened to him eventually? The child born to that marriage died. Then he faced many battles. The sword never departed from his house. King Solomon, one of the wealthiest men that ever lived, great wisdom. What happened to him? He gave in to gluttony. Now, you know that gluttony is not just overeating, right? It's the excess of anything. Now, this one man had 700 wives, 300 concubines. One man. Eventually, they pushed him into serving other gods and he was condemned by God. What about Gehazi? If you remember him, he was the trusted representative of Prophet Elisha, right? So a soldier, I think, Naaman, he came to Elisha for healing. He had leprosy. So Elisha healed him. And then he presented Elisha with all sorts of gifts, but Elisha refused to accept it. Eventually, Naaman went on his way. Gehazi went after Naaman and lied and collected the gifts for himself. What was the consequences of that greed? So Gehazi gave in to greed. What was the consequences of that? He lost his right with Elisha, one. Then he lost his health forever. The leprosy of Naaman that he was healed from was transferred to Gehazi and his descendants. What I'm saying in this instance is this. Every single time you give in to worldly gains or fleeting pleasures or you go against your better judgment, what you're doing is exchanging your birthright, your power, for a bowl of lentil soup. Namaste.